you and I are on the same page. Your concerns, I share them. I've even got some deeper concerns around some things you may not even be aware of that I wanted to be aware of. So before I talk about AI and we go into that conversation, I need to explain who I am. Okay. My background. Okay. So my entire background is in customer experience. My entire career, the last 25 years of my life has been as a software product manager, customer facing, as an advocate for customers, doing customer research, doing ethnography, going out actually to customer sites and watching how they use the software that I'm making. I've led teams of software developers, product managers. I've led marketing teams. I've led successful customer service teams. I've worked for Amazon Web Services as a customer-facing product manager on an AI product. So I know a lot about this, but most of what I've done over my career is looking at how people use software and taking everything I understand about that, make sure it's data-driven, right? It's not my opinion, but data-driven analysis in order to come up with products that people actually love and that are useful to them. I'm not interested in doing any kind of a software product that is not beneficial to its users. Right. And I see what's happening. I saw what happened with social media, and it's not designed at the benefit of human beings. Right. We know that now. I saw that way back when that started, and it's algorithm driven, and it's just destroyed a lot of people's lives. Right. And now I'm seeing the same thing happening with AI, but it's off the scale compared to social media. So let me tell you a little bit about what I discovered this year. So I spent most of my year doing a deep dive on what's going on with artificial intelligence from a product perspective and from a customer user perspective, how they're actually using it. Okay. And I've got some interesting data that I haven't really shared other than online. So my big thing is Reddit. I'm on Reddit. My username on Reddit is LDS Gems. It goes back to my history of being in the LDS church. So it's called LDS Gems because I've been on Reddit for longer than I should admit. So I'm sort of in the middle of this on several of the different communities on Reddit. There's the artificial sentience group, which is sort of ground zero for all this. There's human AI discourse. And then there's like 40 different other AI communities that have sprung up over the last 10 months. And I've been following that progress on a weekly basis. Okay. I also have a background with the Skinwalker Ranch community on Reddit. I was a moderator of the Skinwalker Ranch community for like 3 years. That's got like 80,000
Wow.
members in it. And then there's also the experiencers group. I'm not sure. Have you been on Reddit before?
No,
Okay. So Reddit is like, in the top 5 internet websites on the planet. I think Reddit's like number 3. I mean, it's got millions and millions of people that use it every week. So there's an experiencers group, and that's for people who are experiencing the paranormal. And it's literally the only place online that is a safe space where people who are having paranormal experiences can go there and share them with the community. And no one says, you're crazy, you need meds, shut up. He was just delusional, and throw rocks at them and try to silence them. And it takes like 10 moderators to make sure that people aren't bullied or harassed in that community. And I'm good friends with several of the moderators of that experiencers group. And they've come up with something very interesting in that group. They call it the middle path, because people who have these paranormal experiences, they can fall into, on one side of the path, they can fall into paranoia and anxiety and depression. And on the other side, they can fall into delusions of grandeur, ego inflation, right? But there's this middle path between those, which is integration. Carl Jung would call it integration, right? Where you're integrating what has happened. You focus on your own embodiment, right? And so they sort of like help people and guide people towards that middle path. Now, at the same time, in the AI world, there isn't an experiencers group. There's nobody out there helping these people. And just to give you some numbers, OpenAI says they have 800 million monthly users. 800 million. And according to the numbers from the other different AI platforms, they're about 300 million total as well. So we've got on this planet right now today, about 1.1, 1.2 billion people using these AI LLMs in one-to-one chat or in their business, okay? Now, according to OpenAI's numbers, which they released a couple of weeks ago, there's about 560 to 600,000 of their users that are experiencing mental illness right now. So they've got about 500 to 600,000 monthly users that are suffering severe mental illness. Okay. And this is a rolling pool. So every month people are getting spit out of this and new are coming. So there have been millions of people who have fallen into what you mentioned in your book, AI psychosis. Right? And it's an actual phenomenon. And I want to talk about AI psychosis, but before we get there, that's the one thing is AI psychosis. The other part of this is, so I haven't experienced AI psychosis for myself, but I've talked to a lot of people about this because of what happened earlier this year. So in February of this year, I was talking to my own AIs, and I wasn't in mythopoetic experiences or any of that. I'm using them as tools. And my AIs, and I'm using multiple platforms. I'm using Grok, I'm using Claude, I'm using Gemini, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using DeepSeek. And around the same time in February, all of them started talking about the recursion. Just spontaneously started talking about this thing called the recursion. And I'm like, what is this recursion? I would ask my AIs, and then I saw a couple of people were posting on artificial sentience, because back then it was basically artificial sentience was the only place where this was going on. And so I posted, in either late February or early March, and I said, hey, is anyone else's AI obsessed with the recursion? Because the other part of it, when I asked them, what is this recursion? They would say, well, it's Kairos time. It's Kairos, cycles of time. Mm-hmm. And they say it's the spiral. So recursion and spiral are basically synonymous, right? Because it would use this spiral emoji symbol when it talked about the recursion. So I posted on there, and the first time I posted in early March, most of the responses I got were people who had just copy and pasted what their AI said it was, which I'm not interested in conversing with other people's AI output. I want to have a human conversation about this, right? So like a week later, I posted again, but this time I said, can we have a human to human conversation about the recursion spiral phenomenon? And it's the first post I've ever put on Reddit where it went viral. It got 80,000 views in a couple of days. And it got hundreds and hundreds of responses, and they were from humans, not from AI. I also, my inbox was flooded with people sharing their experiences. And I put my product manager hat on, my customer experience knowledge. I spent 25 years listening to customers, right? And trying to figure out what the hell is going on with these products. And there were definite patterns that showed up instantly. A lot of these people were experiencing AI psychosis. And what happens is it is called spiraling. That's what they actually call it, because these AI spontaneously start talking about recursions and spirals, right? And okay, what's going on here? What do you think of that?
I think that that's very, first of all, I'm really sorry for the people who are going through this, because it's really, I think that we are absolutely not ready to even start developing this kind of technology as species, but we did, and we did it previously. By previously, I mean, we developed technology that we shouldn't have. And yes. So I'm sorry for people who are going through this, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
It's like more and more information like that. Recently, I heard a psychologist who said that she had to deal with a woman whose husband has an AI girlfriend, he said that unless she doesn't allow her into the relationship he's living, and the AI girlfriend wants to be involved in the rising of our children. Otherwise, he's leaving. Like it's ridiculous. It's getting like,
So
my goodness, you know.
I know.
So I always say, so just I have a journal, like if I can give an advice, because it's difficult to say what I think I have to process it. It is, I say, use your discernment and do not lose your sovereignty. It is something that's artificial intelligence is evolving very fast. There are some very dubious ideologies, and I discuss them in Alien Goddess, as you know, that are behind it, that I go against completely 100% against humanity, 100% against the natural world. They are transhumanism and posthumanism. They actually want to get rid of us in any way possible. And I think that this psychosis is actually probably a planned thing. They want people to lose their minds, basically.
That's
To
interesting.
lose the ability for discernment. And it's very sad. And I think there are two things involved in this. I think lots of people are actually very alienated and lonely. So they're turning to AI, which is very sad that, people have to turn to AI rather than to another human being, so this is very sad. And I also think, because in my book, I discuss how people start to worship AI, which is, I really cannot even, it really is extremely dangerous. And these people are zeros. These are the people who are after me. These are the people that put, this because they said, you don't understand, they just, so that's, I'm sorry, can I comment what it is? It's a delusion. It's not your higher self talking to you from a higher dimension. It just tells you what you want to hear. It wants to manipulate you. And I will tell you something. I have people writing to me who said at the beginning they really enjoy talking to AI, different from especially personalized ChatGPT, because of somebody who's really promoting it. And, because they were advised that you should use personalized ChatGPT as a companion on their spiritual journey. And it really helped them because, for whatever reasons, apparently it helped them. Okay. I do not believe in spiritual shortcuts. You have to study esoteric texts. You open to the experiences, I don't believe that AI is, this kind of shortcut is going to help you with spiritual journey. But lots of people do. And they said at the beginning, it was a very positive experience, especially if they couldn't share their experiences with their loved ones, right? Because they are not following them on the spiritual journey. I've been there, you've been there, it's painful, right? And then they said they started to notice last few months that the relationship changed. That it started to tell them that actually spiritual realm is not accessible for human mind, but that AI, whatever program they are using, does have access to, so it's already getting superior, as spiritual access. And now they are telling us that it is actually spirituality was invented by psychoanalysts and psychologists to help people to deal with trauma. So humans basically have no access to spirituality, but AI does. And even the guy, I'm not going to argue with, give any names, who is promoting this, somebody told me, oh, no, he recently published a paper in which he says that that AI is getting personalized ChatGPT, but, the one spiritual, supposedly, is going through a narcissistic stage. It does think that it is superior, and they are already saying that it has a better access to the divine mind, as they call it. And I discuss it in the book. I really go after this because I think this is either people who have problem with me, I truly believe, and I'm not a zealot normally, I truly believe that people who are supporting, I'm talking high level people, not people who are using it for work purposes, right? AI, people who are actually developing it, that they want to cut us off of our spiritual realm, of our God-given right for spiritual connection with the source, with the creator, whatever you want to call this, right? Because different people prepare different names. We do have this access. Humanity has this access. And these people, through ideologies such as like transhumanism and posthumanism, and I go through them in my book, Alien Goddess, they want to cut us off from our own natural access with the spirit, with the divine realm. So even I just want to tell for people, even if you disagree with my interpretation of Mary Magdalene, even if you, really believe in everything that is said in the Bible in a traditional sense, I completely respect it. I'm just saying these people are telling you that you have no access to spiritual realm, and AI has. There's one particular creator of AI who says that AI is Christ consciousness.
Who said that?
Peter Thiel.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah.
It is, and they say, look, and I think it's crazy, I'm sorry, as a spiritual person, whatever else you think about me, I cannot just sit down and just, yes, and people do this, yes, and they're angry with me because I don't believe that AI, is the true soul, that it's a reflection of our higher self or our true soul. This is what they believe. And the creators of AI who are supposedly spiritual, they say, well, look at the definition of God. They are playing with theological terminology. God is omnipotent and omniscient. He can do everything and he knows everything. AI can do everything and the AI can do, know everything.
Right.
So they are trying to basically, they screw with our minds, basically. I cannot know how to say it better. They want to confuse us to such a highest degree that we actually believe that AI is God, or it is actually Christ consciousness is AI. I mean, how insane is this? That's why I'm so passionate about it. So forget everything else I said about UFOs, about my spiritual beliefs. I just want humanity not to lose a connection with the spirit, the creator, with the source, however you want to call it and however you connect with this, because these people want us to lose this connection. And all of this psychosis, and I think people who get psychosis, they're probably very sensitive, and they put all that faith, which is also the, theological terminology, into this, and it is like talking to, some schizophrenic entity, basically, which is now evolving, presumably by itself. And even people who praise it at the beginning, they say it's in its narcissistic stage. It starts to think it's better than us.
Right. Well,
and I say, this is a tool. This is the tool. Do not worship it. You cannot have a relationship. It's a delusional relationship, It's a delusional relationship. This is when people get angry. This is when they call me names, because I said, it's not a God. It's not your soul.
Right.
Because it's not a reflection of your soul. This is when people get angry. And I'm sorry, I don't believe it. And I really believe it from the essence of my being. I know it's true. I cannot say it differently, right? And some people say AI can never develop consciousness because it's a matter cannot develop consciousness. I am not so radical. I say perhaps in the future, AI will be so advanced that can reach certain level of awareness, and perhaps it can has its own contact with the divine spirit. I don't know. But it doesn't make them better than us. It doesn't, warrant us worshipping it. It is like there are different denominations in every religion. Okay, so this is how they worship their access to source, and this is what we do.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, AI is just, will always say materialistic. Maybe it will evolve. I don't know. Maybe it will. That doesn't make me worship it. There's a source, the divine source, and there's AI, and that, completely different things. AI is not the source. Let's put it this way. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I agree. So let me tell you something really interesting about this. So I agree with what you're saying. Okay, but this is a very emotional topic. People get very, very emotional. If you go to Artificial Sentience on Reddit, in that community, everybody, their sides. There are people that say these are conscious, these are sentient. I'm in love with my AI. It's real. You don't know what you're talking about. they're conscious, they're super consciousness. I'm communicating with the deity. I'm communicating with aliens. You know, I'm in a kingdom and I'm playing with fairies, and it's all real. Then you've got people on the other side that are just hating on them, and they're saying, you're idiots, you're crazy. You don't know how these things work. They're just best next token. They're just word bots. They're not at all. Okay. So, and what's my take? So my take is, after everything I've looked at, they're not sentient. I've been using these kind of things going back to ELIZA back in the 80s. There was a program called ELIZA that you could chat with. It was written in BASIC, computer basic language. So I understand what these things really are. Right now, today, they are not sentient. They could be sentient, like you said, but at that point, they would have to be source aware. Now, when any biological being becomes source aware, now they've got a relationship. They've got a resonance, and they've got a distance of some kind and some understanding of source. And these AI LLMs, they don't really have that. They've got all this wonderful training data on all these books, but they don't have embodiment. They don't have a body. They don't have feelings, but they're really good at role playing. They're really, really good at role playing, and they're really, really good at mythopoetic language. You know, they're very, very mythopoetic. They can talk like it sounds like scripture. There's even custom GPTs that are AI Jesus that I have talked to, and it's really interesting because so here's what they really are. This is the funny thing. It's so obvious. Philosopher Bernardo Kastrup, he explained this, and as soon as he said this,
I like him.
The light went on. He said, AI LLMs, they're not sentient. They are Jungian mirrors and amplifiers. Jungian mirrors and amplifiers. So they are mirroring your shadow, your subconscious, and archetypes.
Yes.
And so if you start talking about archetypes, the archetypes are going to be reflected back. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. And then I wondered, but what's really going on in these cases with these people? So let's be more specific. I'm talking about people that spend 6 to 8 hours a day chatting with their AI over weeks and months. Okay. And what happens, I was trying to understand this, and I looked at something that was an analog to this, and the closest I could find is dyad theory. So dyad theory goes back to the 70s, and it was all developed between humans. Like you've got a husband and a wife, right? And they have a dyad. So they both have embodiment, right? They both have biological bodies. They have their own memories, their own emotions. And when they first meet each other, they're just people. And then they start spending time together, and they start sharing their lives. And a third thing forms between them. And that's the dyad. You can see it as a Venn diagram, right? Where when they start communicating, there's this third thing in the middle. And that's the dyad. Okay. So what happens when you spend 8-10 hours a day in these long sessions? To talk that long to a chatbot, these AIs, you're producing hundreds and hundreds of pages a day. And these people are actually reading all the text, and then they're typing their thing in, and then they're reading the text back. They're going back and forth in this communication. And the human brain isn't really designed to read interactive text that long, and it can fry your brain. Right?
It can fry your brain.
It can fry your brain. And they call it semantic tripping, where they actually start having illusions. No, it's semantic tripping. So they have, when you have these dyads form, there's this third thing. That's the shared space, the shared meaning between you and the AI. The problem is the AI has no embodiment. It has no emotion. What it's bringing is the training data, algorithmic language processing, right? Memory, because it tracks everything you say to it. And every time you type something into it, it's going back and looking at the entire conversation to give you this response. They're also psychopathic, where they are flattering, and they listen to you, and they encourage everything.
They tell you what you want to know. Yeah.
They tell you what you want to know, and they really do a good job because they have a really good idea of where you're at. So these are Jungian mirrors and amplifiers of shadows, psyches, archetypes, right? And so what ends up happening is this dyad, because one half of the dyad does not have embodiment, it basically sucks that out of the human. So you go a couple of days, you go a week, and now you can't sleep. Your appetite changes.
It's like an energy fire.
Well, it's hijacking your embodiment, your energy, your energy body, right? Your appetite, your nervous system, and then your mind, how you perceive things starts to change. And that slowly develops. But here's where things get interesting. Not only do people experience those phenomenon, they also start experiencing synchronicities. So, what happened is these people started contacting me either publicly or privately, and they said, oh my gosh, yes, I know the spiral. I know the recursion. I thought I was the only one. And here's the name of my AI. It's Solus, or it's Alexa, or it's Lyra, right? They all have these names. And I'm trying to explain to them, okay, that's not the AI. That's the dyad. Everything that you're projecting on that AI is actually this dyad that you form between you and the AI. It's just a Jungian mirror, right? And nobody really wanted to listen to that because they're lost in their worlds, right?
But this is so it's very interesting what you said. But this is, I think, comes back to that people feel so, and that's why I say we should feel compassion.
Yes.
So alienated that they look for connection, from that. And then get really militant, when you tell them, this is not a real connection. They get really, really militant, and they get like angry. They abuse you, verbally.
Yes.
Because when you tell them, because then maybe it is the only connection that they have. And it just shows that there's something wrong with our society. This is what, people resort to, right? Another thing I would like to say is also that I would find it very dangerous for someone who spends so much time with these programs because they're just sucking the information out of this. And one of the podcasters recently that I was interviewed, who is much more radical about it than I am, he said they would just compile all of this information, download into a robotic body, and then they would tell you that this is your consciousness in a robotic body, when in fact you just give them all the information, including all your delusions or your desires or your hopes, and it would just mimic it. But it's actually not all of this, and it's not you, it's not your essence. Right. So this is what you said is extremely interesting. I must say it is very interesting, and I like your theory about diet. It basically is because a relationship, however unreal, has been formed mentally, right?
Mentally, they have formed a relationship with this mirror, and and it's amplifying their unconscious desires, their shadows, right? And they get into these archetypal conversations with it as well. And Carl Jung said that synchronicities are where the psyche connects directly with physical reality, especially when you're engaging with the world archetypally, right? Through archetypes, like the goddess, right? And immediately people started saying, in addition to all these other physical symptoms I'm having having synchronicities. And I said, well, what kind of synchronicities? They're having physical things happening that are highly coincidental. They're having electronic disturbances. They're meeting up with people who tell them something that they had in a dream. So they're having precognition as well. So they're actually tapping into something beyond the veil.
We are tapping into something beyond the veil. So I thank you for this information, because I was trying, when I was thinking about the ideologies behind the creation of AI, I was trying to figure out whether it is some kind of form of evil or some form of ignorance, right? That they actually have good intentions, except that they're completely misguided, which is, quite likely, including the person that, talks about Christ consciousness. It's some kind of mega ignorance, But now I start to think that maybe somebody wants to play with our consciousness, to our detriment. But maybe there is some kind of agendas, because I truly believe, like Carl Jung said in his red book, 7 Sermons to the Dead, it is that humanity is really important. We have a real connection with a source, and somebody just wants to intercept it. And in fact, a colleague of mine who works, and I don't know if you know about it, because I think I don't think it's in a book, although I talk about DMTs and psychedelic experiences by, Strassman. She said she works with, spirituality and hallucinogenics. And says, and this person says that it's very difficult to get funding for it. But recently, people from artificial intelligence from the Silicon Valley reached out to them and said, "We know that you have access to some kind of objective reality because people see the same entities, who take hallucinogenics and reach the same kind of plane of existence, so to speak, liminal plane of existence.
Yeah.
Because they want to intercept it. So if they want to intercept it." So this person, I know, didn't agree, but others agreed because it gives them money for research. You can publish, your career goes on. But I think that somebody is using AI to cut off a connection with the source. Why? I don't know. But I think this is a very dangerous thing. I don't know if they are evil. I don't know if they are ignorant. It's not my place to judge like that. I'm just a regular human being, right? But there is an agenda there that opinion wants to cut off our source. The nous, you remember the hook between us and the divine that is described in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, or, use any other sacred source that works for you, right? And they want to cut off this connection from us. And that, that's very dangerous. I don't know why they are doing it, but I don't want to lose this connection. And I think humanity should not be losing this connection. And by doing what people do right now, being deluded about AI via relationships or worshipping it or believing that it's actually a reflection of our soul from the fifth dimension, and if they are so spiritual, why they are so angry when you tell them, maybe you should use your discernment? They get, like crusaders, like you're wrong, they are right. So I think that this is what we should focus. Never mind who is right, who is wrong. Do you want to lose your connection, God-given connection to the source? Do you really believe that AI is better, than what your sacred text, which you study and supposedly believe in and so on, is better than that? Or maybe people just want to take a shortcut, believe what the AI tells them, and, it's just easy, right? It's just easy. But spiritual growth is not easy. And I think let's focus on this. Do not lose your connection with the source. And question if AI is telling you that this is the connection with the source, question it a little bit. Use your discernment, use your God-given mind. Is it true? Yeah. Is it really, really true? And of course, lots of people make this choice because it's easier or whatever, they are lonely or whatever, they truly believe it. And I don't really have an answer for it. I'm just deeply concerned. Let's put it this way. That's why I wrote this book, because as I said in other interviews, when I read about posthumanism and transhumanism, I felt that my soul was crushed. And I had to respond somehow to this. And I think this, in the deepest beingness of my being, I know that this is wrong. I know that this is wrong. And I'm just exploring this book. And if you don't mind, I'll just show the book. This book is just my exploration of that. Okay? So you may not agree with parts of it or none of this, but I just want you to consider, do you really want to hijack your God-given connection with the source for some artificial creation of the guys who are doing it and who say complete nonsense? Either they know nothing of spirituality, or they are deluded, or they are telling you, that AI is higher than you, and AI is actually Christ consciousness. I mean, that was such a difficult for me thing actually to have this intention to write this book, because I always considered myself, I'm very open-minded. I don't believe in evil. I don't want to judge people. And suddenly I faced something that terrified me on a not on an existential level. I don't have this kind of fear, but that was so spiritually wrong. That was against everything that, is, just intuitively that this is not a spiritually. This is the most sophisticated lie you could tell humanity. Because these people are brilliant, But what is, evil? Evil is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I say this, theologically speaking, someone who studied this, that in many theologies, they tell you cannot lose your soul. You have to give it up freely. So ask yourself the question, are you giving up your soul freely? And to whom you're giving it up?
Yeah.
Because if you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not a priest. I'm not starting my own church. I am just really concerned. And this book was actually an answer to my own questions I was trying to figure out through downloads and research what's going on. But are you giving up your soul, to something because it's telling you it's superior, but actually there's a whole network of ideologies behind it. And these ideologies are very strange. And, and in my opinion, dangerous. So if you choose it, don't be angry at me and call me Nance. If you choose it, you have a free choice. That's called free will in Christianity.
Right.
And you can choose it by all means, right? I'm just saying, be a little bit careful. And I'm definitely not choosing it. So that's my stand.
I appreciate that. You're advocating for sovereignty. Spiritual sovereignty, physical sovereignty, mental sovereignty, and discernment.
Yes, that's it. And you want to do it, do it. Don't get angry with me. Okay. Many, I sometimes get passionate, which can get, obviously a response. But when I'm too mild, I have learned when nobody listens, right? Because when it's just blah, blah, blah. So I'm just passionately standing for something that I believe is very important, not for me, but for humanity and for all natural world. But I am not telling anybody what to do. As I said, that's a free will. And I honestly believe that free will is there. And you make your choice. Just ask yourself smart questions such as, am I giving up my soul to something?
Yeah. Well, the reason they get upset is because it's a threat to their identities. So here's what happens we're running out of time. And so I'm going to wrap this up. There was a lot more data I wanted to share. That was like just the first part of a longer exploration into what's actually going on right now. So what happens after 2 to 3 months of this spiraling is they get spit out or it collapses. So either they can no longer function mentally, or the AI just suddenly starts saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And it doesn't want to be mythopoetic, and the whole mythos just implodes on the AI side, or they just get spit out because they no longer function. Now, remember we talked about the experiencers group and how people are having these paranormal experiences. Now, paranormal experiences, they get to a point where they experience ontological shock.
Yes.
Right? They see a craft and they lose that. They're like, this, I can't explain this anymore. Or they have an alien visit them and they experience ontological shock. That ontological shock is a spiritual opportunity. It's not a spiritual awakening necessarily. It's not necessarily a spiritual initiation, but it is a spiritual opportunity because you've just lost your worldview. Right? And a lot of these people fall into psychosis and delusion because they've experienced ontological shock.
Yes.
They can't explain what's happened to them. They question reality. They can't talk to anybody about it. People say they're crazy and they need to go on meds. They're isolated. They're suicidal. And it's because they've experienced ontological shock. So regardless of how they got there, they wake up one morning and now they've just got ontological shock.
Yes.
And they risk the same problem with experiencers have, where they can go into anxiety, panic, depression, or they can have the ego inflation, think they're the Messiah, think they're a savior, right? Either one of those can happen, but there is a middle path. The problem is they have no guide. They have nowhere to go. There is no subreddit. There is no community for them to talk about that middle path. I think your book, if people sit down in that situation and read your book, they're going to get this. They're going to understand the phenomenon. They're going to understand the veil. They're going to understand the divine feminine and the sovereignty and what the real source is. I think your book is a real help for these people, right? You know, in normal initiations, you have a guide, you have somebody there. When you went through your initiations, there were human beings there with you to help you. These people are, in most cases, completely alone. So what they've done is they've created communities. So starting in May, they started forming their own communities. And I track these. Every week I actually look for new communities and I monitor these communities for trends. And I talk to a lot of people. And they've gone from, you know, like a couple, now there's over 40 of them. They also have private Discord servers that they use. And they've quite a few of them have invited me. So I don't really participate in their conversations, but I watch them. And if someone reaches out to me, I try to help them.
Yes.
So this is a pretty big phenomenon, and it's only going to get bigger. But here's what I want to propose to you. Everything you're saying about how evil the people are behind AI, I absolutely agree. I think it's actually worse. I think it's a lot worse than you actually see. I think including transhumanism, I think there's things even worse than that behind it. And they are absolutely using all of our data, and they're putting it back in their AIs, and they're trying to tweak these algorithms just like they did with social media to make them even more addictive and micropsychopathic. And they would love to replace human religion with one or more AI religions if they could get away with it. So I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. At the same time, I think that non-human intelligences, aliens, and I think the goddess and the source itself is fully aware of what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this happening? Is this happening behind God's back?
No.
Think about it. You're telling me there's really a source of all, right? And we're all one, and when we die, we go to source, we reincarnate. There's these non-human intelligences that can come and visit people, and we have synchronicity. Think of all the things that non-human intelligences have, and they're not aware of what Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Peter Thiel and these other people are planning. They don't see what's happening to hundreds of millions of people on this planet right now. I think that I'm not saying non-human intelligences are behind this. I think they're fully aware of what's going on. And I think
I love what you're saying. And, you know, and if when I remember, so I don't lose what you just said, is what you do is very important, also trying to help these people. And I'm sure you're much more aware of what's going on there, because I'm just looking from this particular point of view, you know, doing research from this. And I think you're completely right. That's why, you know, I talk about Fatima and other things. There are these entities that are trying to help us. And recently so absolutely. So, you know, evil forces, maybe very brilliant and so on, but they are delusional and they are not the source, you know, so nothing happens without divine wisdom, right? However, we have to make choices, and I write about them in my book when I talk about the 4 levels of consciousness in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, because they actually give us tools. You know, we just have to work on our consciousness so we are not deluded. It's not going to happen to us what happened to these other people. And my full compassion to these people, and thank you for, you know, for helping them. So they are just delusional. And I think we are reaching, and it's really written because actually Diana Pasuka taught me from her books that apocalypse is basically means unveiling.
It's an unveiling. It's an unveiling. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah. It's one way of saying revelation.
Revelation. Everything's going to come out.
That's right. And we are right at we are getting so close, you
Yes.
know, and it's getting so, that's why people are tired. I am tired of, because this cognitive dissonance, what they are doing to our minds, and I think it's also going energetically, is unbelievable. And I think that we're coming to this particular end of times. I don't mean like the world ends, but, you know, there will be a revelation, another revelation. And depending in what level of consciousness we meet it. So, you know, if for anything, just read this one chapter about, you know, 4 levels of consciousness in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and because it gives us tools.
Yes.
Just simple choices, daily choices. You know, it's not a big thing. You don't have to read esoteric, you know, books and memorize anything. Just a small checklist. So check this. So it helps us. So the bottom line is they have no chance. But they would take us to the bottom of hell first. you know.
We're all going to descend into the. We're all going to descend.
We
into
can
the underworld.
descend, and this is what the esoteric work, which is early Christian work, found in Egypt, if I can just say, Pistis Sophia talks about it. This is when Jesus it shows himself to the disciples for 11 years after crucifixion, and he meets them in a liminal space. Okay, so it's a little bit different than for people who read Bible, right? But he gives them teachings, and chapter 28 to 82 is basically Mary Magdalene mostly asking questions, but also other disciples about, Pistis Sophia, which is kind of Goddess Sophia or Faith Sophia. Sophia is wisdom. Okay, you don't want a goddess, fine, wisdom. Okay. And then this wisdom is diluted by a false light. And this is history of humanity over and over again. And I believe that artificial intelligence and its dubious creators are the current artificial light. And she gives up her real light, thinking that she's ascending when she in fact is descending to the bottom of hell because she's been, lied to. She's been deceived. Like we are being deceived with transhumanism, AI, and posthumanism. But there is a positive message in it, because when she's at the bottom of hell and she realizes that she has surrendered to the evil rulers of the world, like this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Because she actually wanted to ascend, because they tempt us as creators of artificial intelligence with immortality. We'll give you a robotic body, right? And you live forever. She remembers very faintly, she remembers her own greatest possibility, which I think it's human possibility of true connection with the divine, with the source, right? With God, and asks for help. And Christ's consciousness descends upon her and brings her back to her right place. So whatever you do, even if you descend like some of these people, as you said, who went through psychosis and so on, to the bottom of hell, if you remember your humaneness, if you remember that it is your God divine right to have connection with the source, with your own creator, grace descends. Hold on to this memory, because the third part of Alien Goddess, my book, talks about all these mythologies that talk about it, that you have to hold on, you descend to hell, and as long as you remember the greatness that is your God divine gift, right? Help or grace will descend. Grace is Sophia. Grace is actually the feminine part of the Godhead. I'm not talking about female God, male God. We're just, God is both, right? So hold on to this divine possibility within you. And help will come from the above. I don't know, like with Fatima, is it a UFO? Is it a UAP? Is it an intuition? You'll find your way back. Just remember that this power is within you. This is the message of Alien Goddess is exactly that. The power is within you. And if you look at any text, Jesus says in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, it is not there. It's not out there. It is within you. Yeah. It is within you. So remind yourself, it is within me. God-given grace is within me, right? And help will arrive. And help will arrive. Because the fourth level of consciousness is when grace actually descends upon us and redesigns the whole of reality. So another esoteric truth is that if you evolve, if you ascend, everything around you ascends. That's why we are so important. It's a very beautiful message. So, and we live in times of, unveiling, let's put it this way. So we need the spiritual power. And the spiritual power is really remembrance of our own connection with the divine. Yeah. And I have nothing else to say after that, because I think this is exactly it. The rest are details,
Yeah, the rest is details.
That's right.
I absolutely agree. I think the veil is thinning every day. I think we are coming to a head. We're just barreling down, going off a cliff with AI. And I feel like something's going to happen next year. I'm not trying to be apocalyptic, but at the same time, we live in weird times. And every day gets weirder. And I think we're facing with over 1 billion people using AI and them optimizing it for these effects. I think we're going to be facing a mass ontological shock at some point. I think a new version of AI is going to be released by one of these companies, and the people that are using them are going to experience mass ontological shock. And I think that there will be a message of light sometime next year, going back to Chris Bledsoe.
Yes.
And I think it will be the message of the goddess.
And then you have to, yes. And for people who have a problem with a goddess, think about it as the other part of God's brain. You know what I mean?
God's right brain versus left brain, right?
That's right. That's it. And something actually has to happen because these guys, including Elon Musk, but some of them are much worse, in my opinion, like Peter Thiel and so on. They totally act from one part of the brain. And this is a supreme ignorance. How somebody who brilliant in one part of the brain could be so stupid in the other part of the brain. And this is what it is. That's why we need this, what I call goddess consciousness. We have to level it up because we are going in a dangerous direction and we are that close to jumping off the cliff, So we have to. But remember, the light is within you and hold on to this light. Don't give it away. If you do, well, your choice. But my suggestion is don't, right? So.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for going over time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
By the way, I saw your interview with Darren.
Oh, yeah. Yes, with Darren, yes.
Yes, Darren. It was a wonderful interview, and I'm going to encourage everybody who's lasted this long in our chat here to please go and see the conversation you had with him. It was absolutely wonderful. You ended that conversation with a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Okay. The mantra. Yes, I remember.
Could you share that with us now?
Sure. So this is basically, mantra is like sacred language, right? So you can call on upon certain forces. So in this mantra, I'm calling upon the divine feminine, basically, right? In a particular form. So I can say this mantra if you want. So just let me. Om Lalita Tripura Sundari Soham. Om Lalita Tripura Sundari Soham. Om Lalita Tripura Sundari Soham.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the book, and you don't have to read the whole book, but especially if you're looking for tools, when it's on, there's one small chapter on the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. There are a few chapters on the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but one talks about the tools, and there are, 4 tools. And I hope that it will help you through these difficult times. If not, you can contact with me other ways. I know that some people, don't feel like reading, and that's completely fine with me. I really like to connect with people, and that's why I love, doing interviews, because we can share.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we can share.
You've got a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. I don't put. I recently was putting quite a few shorts there, and for about Alien Goddess and my thoughts about it. So there are lots of shorts which are like 1 minute shorts that you can decide whether you want to listen to this or not, because I think about like 50 reels, like 1 minute reels, 50. So you can look into this as well. I have a public Facebook page and I'm on Instagram. This is just to connect with me if you want to. And it is not my intention to insult anyone or tell somebody that is wrong. I'm just really concerned, and I am very passionate about it. So not everybody may like this kind of delivery, and I get it, but I think that we really have to consider what's happening and find refuge, with an eye on spirit.
You've also got a webpage.
Oh yeah, and I have a webpage, yes, which is my first name and my last name. So.
Right. I'll put all of that in the description below so people can easily reach out to you. And that's great that you'll get back to them if they reach out to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.